During the summer, you can have a lot of storms. And those storms are gonna bring a lot of rain, and that rain will flood a lot of lakes. And so today I'm gonna talk about fishing flooded lakes or rising water. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. This video is brought to you by the Deep Dive app. The Deep Dive app is an app that you can download on your phone that can help you to find bass a lot quicker. Once you get to the body of water that you are fishing, you can actually select that lake. It's going to bring in the weather conditions, and then you can put in things like water temperature, water clarity, whether you're fishing around vegetation or in a protected or windy area. And then the app is going to spit out some strategies and lures that you can use to go and attack your water. If this interests you, there is a free version and a paid version, and you can download it by clicking on the link down below in the description. I feel like just about every summer anymore, I run into a situation where I am fishing a flooded lake of some sort, whether that is recent rains that just brought a lot of water, or for whatever reason, they're holding back the water on that dam and the lake is just really flooded. And in those situations, the bass act differently. And there's a few things that you should know first about kind of bass behavior when it comes to fishing flooded lakes. And the biggest thing is that there is going to be a population of bass that moves shallower with that flooded water. They're going to be located on things that were once dry land. But I think that it's really important to know that not every bass in the lake all of a sudden rushes to the bank and gets up in the trees and in the sticks and everything like that. So if you have been catching fish offshore, if you have been catching fish deep, don't abandon those fish, because a lot of times those fish, I don't even think that they really know that the lake is flooded, right? All of a sudden they just have maybe a couple more foot of water on top of them. So don't abandon fish if you are catching them out deep and offshore. Now, sometimes those deep fish will be affected by the water clarity. So if the lake that you are fishing happens to get really muddy, that is what is going to affect that deep offshore bite the most. If it gets really muddy, it does seem like those fish kind of scatter from that deeper offshore structure, or they get onto some of the shallower structure that is in the area. Now, when it comes to fishing the shallow stuff, that shallow stuff that is now flooded, I think that something that is really important is to still concentrate on isolated cover. It is so easy for us as fishermen, once we put the boat in the water, to just look at a row of bushes or trees that is now in the water. And a lot of us are like, oh man, that looks so good. I want to get over there. I want to start flipping and pitching all that cover and just try to find those fish. To me, that is just something that sounds like a lot of fun, but it is something that I really have to keep myself from doing. For instance, if you look at this creek that I'm sitting in right now, one whole side of this creek is pretty much nothing but trees and brush. And that is the side that is very tempting to automatically go to and just start kind of flipping and pitching and seeing if those fish have pushed back in that cover. But if you look at the other side of this creek that I'm fishing, it is not the same. It is very different. On this side of the creek, there are very few pieces of cover. There's probably only 3 or 4 pieces of cover that are now flooded that the bass could be on. And in my opinion, it is best to target this side with fewer pieces of cover, because if you think about it, there may be 3 bass over on this side of the creek, and there may be 3 bass over on that side of the creek. Now, on that side of the creek where there is very few pieces of cover, it may take me only 5 minutes to fish all 3 of those pieces of cover. But over on this side, where there is literally hundreds of different ambush points that these bass could be on, it may take me 45 minutes to fish 100 yards, because there's just so much cover in the water. So although this side looks really good, it's going to take me a lot longer to catch those 3 bass than it is to catch the 3 bass where that isolated cover is. So what this really comes down to is kind of a matter of efficiency when you're out there on the water. I'm not saying that you absolutely shouldn't fish that line of trees or that line of bushes. I'm just saying it's going to take you a lot longer to fish that than it will that isolated cover. So if you find more banks with isolated isolated cover, you might be able to fish 6 or 7 different banks in the same amount of time it takes you to fish just one bank over here, which means you might be able to catch 6 or 7 times more fish by fishing that isolated cover. Now, with all that being said, depending on where you live in the country or what type of lake that you are fishing, if that water rises, it may look like this everywhere you go. It may be nothing but trees and bushes all in the water. So what do you do when it comes to that situation? To me, there are really 2 major ways to kind of navigate that forest of trees. And the first thing is I'm going to try to fish the banks that are a little bit steeper. If you fish really flat banks where that water can really go back, I mean 30 yards, 40 yards, 100 yards, it just gives the bass way too many pieces of cover to be on, and it takes a long time to fish it. So fishing those steeper banks that maybe don't have cover that goes back as far, this really helps you to kind of pinpoint the bass so you don't have to fish as much cover to get to where the fish are. Several years ago, I was fishing a local championship tournament down on Kentucky Lake, and literally overnight, the Kentucky Lake rose about 3 foot, and this is exactly what I did. In this event, I started targeting the steeper banks because there was a lot less cover for the bass to be in, which helped me to pinpoint where those bass were. I fished against over 200 guys in this tournament, and I was able to get 4th place, and I caught the big bass of the tournament, which was a 6-pound 4-ounce bass. Now, the second thing that you can do is really just pay attention to where you are getting bit in that flooded cover, because what I've seen a lot of times is the bass will get on something very, very specific in that flooded cover. For instance, I've seen it before where bass just get on the hardwoods that are flooded. So you may be going down a bank and everything is flooded. You have bushes in the water, a lot of sticks in the water, but on that bank you might have 3 or 4 hardwood trees, and those are always the places where you're going to get bit. So instead of fishing all those bushes and all those sticks and everything that's there, just pay attention to the hardwoods. Now, I've also seen it where the bass are simply in green bushes. I've actually seen this a lot when the water gets high and you have those green bushes, maybe it's buckbrush that is in your area. A lot of times that can be where the bass are. So pay really close attention to what pieces of cover you actually start catching fish on, because once you start catching fish on a specific piece of cover, then you literally just have to put everything else out of your mind and just concentrate on that piece of cover. That is really going to help you to eliminate a ton of water and catch a lot more bass. Now, a lot of times in the summer we have rising water, but a lot of times also in the summer we have falling water, water that is really, really low. And I actually made a full video right here about what you can do to catch bass when the water is low. And I think this one is really good. So if you enjoyed this video, you're going to enjoy this one as well. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.